The phone vibrated on the bedside table, rousing Jack from his light sleep. His eyes widened immediately, years of Secret Service training making the transition from sleep to alertness almost instantaneous. His phone screen glowed with a familiar number, one he hoped he'd never see again. "Hawkins," he answered, his voice steady despite the late hour. "Jack, it's Director Thompson." The voice on the other side sounded tense, urgent. "I need you in the White House. Now." Jack's heart raced. His fingers gripped the phone as he stood up, already calculating the time of the drive from Arlington to Washington, D.C. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he replied, ending the call. While dressing quickly, Jack observed his reflection in the mirror. The face marked by small scars told stories of past missions. His eyes, once weary from early retirement, now shone with a mixture of apprehension and determination. The sound of his boots echoed through the silent hallway of the building as he descended the stairs, jumping 2 steps at a time. The summer evening of Washington greeted him with a damp, heavy air when he went out into the street. As he stepped into his black Ford Mustang, Jack could already feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Returning to active duty to protect the president wasn't just a job, it was a call to duty. The streets of the capital were surprisingly busy for that hour of dawn. Jack drove with precision, his mind already anticipating the possible scenarios that awaited him. What could be so urgent to bring a retired agent back into the service? When the White House emerged in front of him, towering and illuminated against the night sky, Jack knew his life was about to change dramatically. He parked the car in the designated spot and walked toward the west entrance, his steady steps masking the tension growing inside. A young agent was waiting for him at the door, his face serious and professional. "Agent Hawkins, please come with me. Director Thompson and the president are waiting in the crisis room." Jack followed him through the familiar corridors, the silence of the night broken only by the muffled sound of his footsteps on the carpet. With each step, he felt the weight of his new mission solidifying. Whatever the threat, he was ready to face it. The doors to the crisis room opened, and Jack entered, prepared for whatever awaited him on the other side. The air in the room was charged with tension, and the looks that turned to him were a mixture of relief and concern. The President of the United States was standing before a large digital screen, his normally confident face now marked by lines of concern. Next to him, Director Thompson gestured emphatically, pointing to a series of images on the screen. "Jack," the director said, turning around. "Good to see you. Sorry for the sudden call, but the situation is critical." Jack nodded, his eyes quickly scanning the room, assessing potential threats out of habit. "What is the situation, sir?" The president stepped forward, his voice low and controlled. "We have received information of an imminent threat. A domestic terrorist group plans an attack during my visit to New York tomorrow." Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. "What kind of attack are we talking about?" Director Thompson touched the screen, enlarging an image. "We believe it is a chemical attack. Our sources indicate that they have access to a highly lethal nerve agent." "Why call me back?" Jack asked, although he already suspected the answer. The president approached, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. "We need someone with your experience, Hawkins. You know New York better than anyone, and your reputation in high-stakes situations is second to none." Jack nodded slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle in. "What's the plan?" "You will lead an elite team," the director explained. "Your mission is twofold: to ensure my safety during the visit and, more importantly, to locate and neutralize the threat before it materializes." The president added, "I understand I'm asking a lot, especially after what happened last time." Jack closed his eyes for a moment, painful memories threatening to surface. He pushed them away, focusing on the present. "I will do whatever is necessary, Mr. President." "Great," Director Thompson said, handing Jack a tablet. "Here are the details of the operation. You have 6 hours to prepare and assemble your team. Air Force One takes off at 0600. Jack picked up the tablet, his mind already racing with strategies and contingency plans. "Roger that. Any restrictions on team selection?" "Carte blanche, Hawkins," the president replied. "Choose who you need. This mission is top priority." With one last look at the room, Jack turned to leave. Before he could reach the door, The president's voice stopped him. "Jack," he called, his voice softer now. "I know you carry the weight of the past, but remember, you are the best chance we have." Jack met the president's gaze, seeing in him a mixture of confidence and supplication. He nodded once, determination shining in his eyes. "I will not disappoint, sir. Not this time." With those words, Jack walked out of the crisis room, his mind already focused on the task ahead. The next 24 hours would be crucial, and he knew the fate of countless lives was in his hands. As he walked through the corridors of the White House, Jack began mentally listing the names of the agents he would summon. This mission would require the best of the best, and he knew exactly who to call. The sun was just beginning to rise on the horizon when Air Force One took off from Andrews Air Force Base. Jack Hawkins was sitting in one of the private cabins, surrounded by dossiers and detailed maps of New York. His eyes quickly scrolled through the information, his mind processing every detail. A light tap on the door made him look up. Sarah Chun, a chemical weapons expert he had recruited hours earlier, entered the booth. "We have something," she said, her voice low and urgent. "We intercepted an encrypted communication. It seems that the group plans to use the subway system as a vector for the attack." Jack frowned, picking up a map of the New York subway. "It complicates things. Thousands of people transit there every day." "Exactly," Sarah agreed. "And the worst thing is that we still don't know exactly which line or station they intend to hit." Jack stood up, straining his tense muscles. "Gather the team in the conference room in 5 minutes. We need to develop a containment plan." As Sarah left, Jack looked out the window of the plane. Down below, the country he had sworn to protect passed in a blur of fields and cities. Responsibility weighed on his shoulders like a lead cloak. In the conference room, the elite team that Jack had assembled was already gathered. Serious faces stared at him as he entered. "Okay, guys," Jack began, his voice firm and decided. "We have an evolving situation. The New York City subway is now our main focus." He gestured to Mike Donovan, a former SEAL who now worked in special operations. "Mike, I want you to lead a tactical team. You will infiltrate the tunnel system and scan every inch for anything suspicious." Mike nodded, already taking notes on his tablet. "Sarah," Jack continued, "you and your team will set up chemical sensors at key points in the system. If this nerve agent is released, we need to detect it immediately." "Got it," Sarah replied. "We are already calibrating the sensors to detect even minimal traces." Jack turned to Lisa Reyes, a counterterrorism expert. "Lisa, I want you to coordinate with the NYPD and the Transit Authority. We need eyes and ears in all seasons, but without causing panic." "You can leave it," Lisa said. "I have contacts who can help us discreetly." "What about the president?" asked Tom Baker, the head of the personal security team. Jack hesitated for a moment. "The official plan remains unchanged. The president will deliver his speech at City Hall as scheduled. Tom, your team will be responsible for immediate security. But stay tuned. If the situation escalates, we may need a quick extraction." The tension in the room was palpable. Every person there knew what was at stake. "Guys," Jack said, his voice softening a little, "I know the pressure is huge, but we are the last line of defense. Thousands of lives depend on us today. I trust each one of you. Let's make it happen." A chorus of nods echoed through the room. Jack looked at each face, seeing determination mixed with apprehension. "Very well," he concluded. "We will land at JFK in an hour. From there, we will be in full operation mode. Stay alert and in constant communication." Dismissed. As the team dispersed for their final preparations, Jack remained in the room, staring at the map of New York projected on the screen. Somewhere in that city, a group of terrorists was preparing to cause chaos and destruction, and he was determined to stop them, no matter the cost. The Marine One helicopter landed gently on the helipad of Lower Manhattan, its rotors cutting through the morning New York air. Jack Hawkins descended first, his eyes scanning the perimeter with keen attention. The president followed moments later, flanked by Tom Baker and his security team. "All clear so far, sir," Jack informed, his voice barely audible through the headset. "Stay alert." The president nodded quietly, his political smile already in place as he waved to the distant cameras. The motorcade began to move towards the waiting vehicles. Jack touched his earpiece. Alpha Team, report. Mike Donovan's voice crackled in response. Alpha in position. Southern tunnels checked and cleaned. Moving to the central sector. Got it, Jack replied. Bravo Team? Bravo here, Sarah Chin's voice replied. Sensors installed at major stations. No abnormal readings so far. Jack felt the tension grow in his stomach. Everything seemed too calm. His years of experience told him that this often preceded the storm. The presidential motorcade snaked through the streets of Manhattan, heading for City Hall. Jack watched the crowds on the sidewalks, looking for any sign of menace. Suddenly, the radio came to life. Central to Hawkins, an urgent voice called. We have a situation. Jack felt his body stiffen. Go ahead, Central. We have detected suspicious activity at Fulton Street Station. Security cameras captured individuals carrying unidentified equipment into the maintenance area. Shit, Jack muttered. Fulton Street was dangerously close to the president's path. Mike, redirect your team to Fulton immediately. Sarah, I need readings from that area now. On the way, Mike replied. Starting scan, Sarah confirmed. Jack turned to Tom Baker, who was sitting next to the president in the armored SUV. Tom, the situation may be deteriorating. Prepare to implement the SHIELD protocol. Tom nodded gravely, his hand already moving to the button for safe communication with the driver. The president leaned forward, his expression serious. Jack, what's the situation? Possible threat identified, sir. We are evaluating, but we may need to abort the mission and evacuate you immediately. The president's face hardened, but he nodded. Do whatever it takes to protect civilians, Jack. My safety is secondary. Jack felt a surge of respect for the man. Understood, sir. But don't worry, we'll take care of both. The radio crackled again. Hawkins, this is Mike. We arrived at Fulton Station. I confirm the presence of armed suspects. They have... Oh my God. What is it, Mike? Speak up. They have containers. They seem to be dispersion devices. Jack, that's big. Jack's heart raced. Sarah, are you getting any reading? Negative yet, but... Wait. Damn it. I detected traces of the agent in the air. It's low, but it's rising. Jack didn't hesitate. Implement SHIELD now. Tom, get the president out of here. Mike, neutralize the threat at any cost. Sarah, initiate containment and evacuation protocols. The presidential motorcade suddenly changed direction, tires screeching on the asphalt. Sirens began to sound throughout Manhattan. Jack looked out the window, seeing panic begin to spread through the streets. He knew the next few minutes would be crucial. The battle to save New York, and perhaps the country, had begun. Chaos ensued on the streets of Manhattan. Sirens cut through the air, and panic began to spread among the confused pedestrians. Jack Hawkins remained focused, his mind working at high speed. Mike, situation? Jack demanded over the radio, as the presidential SUV sped down the streets, dodging surging traffic. Mike's voice sounded tense. We are in direct confrontation. For suspects identified. 2 neutralized, but the others are entrenched near the dispersal devices. Keep the pressure on, Jack ordered. We can't let them activate these devices. Sarah interrupted. Jack, agent levels are increasing at the station. If they manage to release everything, we will have a catastrophe. Jack closed his eyes for a second, making a difficult decision. Tom, take the president to the Zulu extraction point. I'm going to Fulton. Jack, no. The president protested. It's too risky. With all due respect, sir, Jack replied, already opening the door of the moving SUV. That's why I'm here. Without waiting for an answer, Jack jumped out of the vehicle, skillfully rolling down the street. He got up quickly, running towards the Fulton Street Station. Lisa, he called over the radio. I need a clear route to Fulton and a chemical containment team ready to move in. Got it, Lisa replied. NYPD is creating a corridor for you. Chemical team on standby. Jack ran through the chaotic streets, his training allowing him to move with unearthly agility. As he approached the station, he could hear the shots echoing from the depths of the subway. Mike, I'm coming, he informed her. What is the hostage situation? We evacuated most of it, Mike replied, panting. But we still have civilians trapped on the platform. Jack walked down the station stairs, the air getting denser with each step. He could feel the slight tingling on his skin, an early sign of the nerve agent's presence. Upon reaching the platform, the scene was pure chaos. Mike and his team were exchanging gunfire with two heavily armed men who were hiding behind a large metal box, presumably the dispersal device. "Mike, give me cover," Jack shouted, running crouching toward a group of terrified civilians. While Mike intensified the fire, Jack quickly guided the civilians to the exit. "Run, don't stop until you reach the surface." With the civilians out of harm's way, Jack turned to the main battle. He could see that the terrorists were desperate, probably realizing that their plan was falling apart. "Sarah," Jack called, "how long do we have before the levels become lethal?" "Minutes, Jack. Maybe less." Jack knew it was time for a bold move. "Mike, smoke grenade, now." As soon as the smoke began to spread, Jack moved forward. Years of training and instinct guided his movements. He dodged shots, rolled and, in one fluid movement, neutralized the first terrorist with an accurate blow. The second, in a panic, rushed to the device. "Do not approach, or I will release everything." Jack stopped, hands raised. "Think well. You will also die." "I will die as a martyr," the man shouted, his hand hovering over the activation button. At that critical moment, Jack saw an opening. With impressive speed, he launched his combat knife. The blade struck the terrorist's arm, causing him to scream in pain and move away from the device. Mike and his team immediately moved forward, subduing the man. "Sarah, containment team, now?" Jack ordered, rushing to the device. Carefully, he began to disarm it, his hands moving with surgical precision. The seconds felt like hours, but finally, "Device disabled," Jack announced, exhausted. The chemical containment team stormed the station, immediately starting decontamination procedures. Jack leaned against a pilaster, the adrenaline beginning to subside. His radio crackled. "Jack?" It was the voice of the president. "Report." A small smile appeared on Jack's tired face. "Threat neutralized, sir. New York is safe." There was a moment of silence before the president responded, his voice charged with emotion. "Good job, Jack. Good job." As emergency crews flooded the station and the sound of sirens filled the air above, Jack closed his eyes for a moment. The city had been saved, but he knew this was just one battle in a much larger war. Opening his eyes, he stood up. There was a lot of work to be done, and he would be there to do it, because that's what he did. That's who he was. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. Jack coordinated cleanup and security operations, working tirelessly to ensure that no trace of the nerve agent remained at the Fulton Street station or any other part of the subway system. It was evening when Jack finally left the station, exhausted but vigilant. The city around them buzzed with a nervous energy. Fear of the foiled attack still hung in the air, mixed with a feeling of collective relief. "Jack," Lisa Reyes' voice sounded in her earpiece. "Director Thompson is requesting your presence at the Emergency Operations Center." Jack sighed, running his hand over his tired face. "Roger that. I'm on my way." In the Operations Center, located in an undescribed building in Midtown Manhattan, Jack encountered a scene of frenzied activity. Agents and analysts moved quickly between workstations, processing information and coordinating with various agencies. Director Thompson greeted him with a brief handshake. "Good job today, Hawkins. You have saved countless lives." Jack nodded, but his expression remained serious. "Thank you, sir. But that's not over, is it?" Thompson motioned for Jack to follow him into a private conference room. Inside, maps and photos covered the walls, all connected by red lines, forming a complex web of connections. "You're right," Thompson said, closing the door. "What happened today was just the tip of the iceberg. The cell we neutralize is part of a much larger organization." Jack studied the maps on the wall, his eyes narrowing as he recognized patterns. "They have cells in other major cities." "Exactly," Thompson confirmed. "And we have reason to believe that they are planning simultaneous attacks in multiple locations." Jack felt a weight settle on his chest. The threat was much greater than he had initially imagined. "What's the plan?" he asked, turning to face the director. Thompson hesitated for a moment before answering. "The president wants you to lead a special task force, Hawkins. Your mission will be to dismantle this organization, no matter the cost." Jack thought for a moment. He thought about his quiet life before this call, about the retirement he had planned. But then, the images of the day flashed through his mind. The fear in the eyes of civilians, the determination of his team, the danger that still hung over the country. "When do we start?" Jack asked, his voice firm and decided. A slight smile appeared on Thompson's face. "Immediately. Your team is being assembled as we speak. You will leave for Washington in an hour for a full briefing with the President and the National Security Council." Jack nodded, feeling the familiar mix of adrenaline and apprehension coursing through his veins. "Understood, sir." As he left the room, Jack paused for a moment, looking out the window at the city he had just saved. Outside, millions of people slept in their beds, unaware of the danger that still threatened them. Jack clenched his fists, a new determination surging in his chest. He had been called back to the service for a reason, and now he fully understood what that reason was. Today's battle had been won, but the war was just beginning. With one last look at the city, Jack turned and left the room, ready to face whatever the future held. The nation needed him, and he would not disappoint. Thank you very much to those who have supported the channel financially through the link in the comment pinned. This helps me to bring more and more stories to you. And don't forget to like and also subscribe to continue receiving the new stories.